Okay, I read 14 books in June. Hi guys, it's Mo from Mo Reads It, and I read 14 books in June, which is not typical of me. This is not my normal. I usually read, I feel like 4 to 7 or 7 to 10, something like that. It depends on my month. I feel like on a good month 7 to 10, on a average month 4 to 7. This month I read 14, which is not average for me at all. So June was the month of me getting over COVID, so I had a lot of downtime. I was in my bed a lot, so I just read or listened to books on audio. I quickly ran out of YouTube videos and Netflix. I literally have nothing left on Netflix to watch, and it's really bothering me because I need background noise. I'm about to resort to Grey's Anatomy just to have like something playing in the background because I need that extra stimulation. When it's too quiet, it just feels really airy, and I don't like that. As far as my June TBR goes, I actually only read one book for my June TBR, which is Skyward by Sanderson. Oh my gosh. I feel like it was nothing I expected it to be. I feel like I've heard a lot of great things about Sanderson's work. I feel like I just didn't feel like any of those things I heard about his work was delivered in this book. I did give it a 4, but that's because the ending redeemed it. I love the ending. I found like the action-packed ending to be everything I wanted and more. But the book itself was the day in the life of a pilot student, and it didn't click for me. The characters weren't as real to me as I feel like they could have been. And at the end of the day, I just did not, it didn't live up to the hype for me. It just didn't. It didn't live up to the hype for me. It's a 4-star book for me. It is a 4-star book for me. Is this to say I wouldn't read another Sanderson book? Not necessarily. I did like the world building a lot, and maybe the series just wasn't for me, but I also read the sequel to this book because I really liked the ending and the world building. So I read the sequel to this book, which is Starsight. I also gave it 4 stars, but it was pretty much the same book, just written with a new cast and in a different location. So yeah, that's how I felt about the second book. I felt like nothing really happened, and I actually like the ending of this one more than I like the ending of the second book. I feel like invested in the story. I want to know what happens, but I'm just like, I really hope the writing and the pace of the story gets less boring. Like, I don't want to read the day in the life of a pilot student. I really don't. I want to read an action-packed sci-fi adventure. And the romance was like nothing, which I didn't expect there to be much romance in it, honestly, but there really was like 0 romance, and I was just like, can we get like a twinkle, a drip, a drop? But nothing. It's okay. It doesn't market itself as any type of romance anyway, but I was hoping for like, you know, a little sprinkle. And that is the first book I read in June. Also, I did find Skyward to be very predictable, which I personally did not expect. I expected it to be more mysterious than that, but I predicted the ending. I predicted pretty much the entire book, which also took away from the reading experience, but it's okay. I think I'm gonna try Mistborn as my next Sanderson reads, but I don't know. Maybe it's not for me. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. We shall see. The second book I read in June was Restore Me by Tahereh Mafi. I actually gave this book 4 stars, and this began this interesting reading marathon. I really wish I had recorded it because it was like epic, but prior to June, I had just finished reading the original trilogy for the Shatter Me series. And then at the beginning of June, I was able to finally get my Amazon order for all 6 of the books. So I have the original trilogy. And guess what? I reread it. I read from Restore Me up. I read them in June, and then I reread Shatter Me, Unravel Me, and Ignite Me also in June. And guess what? I also read the novellas. And that is why my book reading stats is so high this month. I read all of the novellas. There's like 6 or 5 novellas, and they're not long. They're not long at all. So actually, if it actually is 6 novellas, that would put me on average for how many books I typically read a month. Because like it'll be like 4 to 7, so this will put it around the 7 mark ish. So that'll be pretty typical of me. But yeah, amazing. I love the series. The second half of the trilogy, the second trilogy part, not as good as the first trilogy part. I feel like the original trilogy was just the best. I ended up going back and tabbing it when I did the reread. I have to go fix my tabs because they're sticking out way too much and they're getting crushed on my bookshelf, but I ended up going back and tabbing them, and I only really ended up tabbing book 2 and book 3. Book 1 was 4 stars, but it was just an okay 4 stars. In my heart, 4 stars is pretty much like, at this point, it's good enough for me to keep reading. It's good, but it's pretty much like, it's okay. Like, it wasn't fluffy enough. But these are like 4.2s and 4.7s, so these are like fluffy enough for me to like tab them up and like, you know, jot my little thoughts in the margin. It was a wild ride reading these books, and I am so happy I ordered the special editions from Verilou, I believe, because I would be so sad if I missed out on them. They are totally fantasy romance, they are totally dystopian 2010, but I enjoyed them. I kind of wish Monique YA Days got to read these, because I feel like she would have enjoyed them way more than Monique right now, but still fun. Got it added to my favorites. These are books that made me feel better when I was sick, which is always a plus because being ill sucks. And the books that make you forget that you're ill are amazing. So I ended up reading all of these twice, and I read the novellas, which is why I have such a high reading stats for this month. It was worth it. I'm happy I reread them. I feel like I got the story better in my mind in the reread, and it solidified the story for me a lot more as well. So I enjoyed reading the whole entire Shatter Me series in June. I will say though, reading the Shatter Me series does make me more excited to read the sequel to This Woven Kingdom, which was the first Tahereh Mafi book I ever read, because I feel like if this is how the story has a theme to progress, I'll really enjoy it. So I'm excited. And of course, authors grow through their work. I feel like this was her earlier work. I think so. They were published before This Woven Kingdom, so I'm hoping that This Woven Kingdom like just shoots it into the sky, is among the stars and the moon. I'm ready for it to blow my mind. So after going on that Tahereh Mafi roller coaster, I finished up with The Ivory Key, which was one of my, I believe, Illumicrate books. Yes, Illumicrate books. I gave this like a 3 stars, 3.9, 3.5-ish. I did not love the story as much as I feel like I would have, but I feel like I was coming off of the Tahereh Mafi high, and going into this, I feel like my heart just wasn't as into it as it could have been. My mind was in other places. I was daydreaming about my favorite characters. It was just not here for the book. I still read the book. I enjoyed it, but I feel like I was only half present for the experience of it. So take my review with a grain of salt. I still enjoyed the book, but I feel like I should have read it at a different time period. I did like the world building in this. It was very decadently done. It starts off with a bang, but then it trickles, and I didn't like the trickling. I liked the bang, and then when it started trickling and started trickling more, I was just like, I started to lose interest. I had to put this book down a few times and pick it back up again. This is a family drama tale, so it does have family adventures, family building tropes. It's very cutesy bitsy wholesome, but I just needed something else after reading the Shatter Me series. I feel like I needed another fantastical fantasy romance, but it's okay. It was still good. I gave it 3.9. One of my good friends read this and she gave it, I think, 4 or 5, I think so, something like that. So that's a good perspective on the level of work that was put into this book. She's more literary analyst than I am, so if she gave it such a good rating, it's probably a good book. But just didn't click in me. By the way, she's my same friend that loves Six of Crows, and she's the same friend that I started the book club with for Skyward. We're going into our next month of July working on the book club. Hopefully we stay at it because it's still a tentative book club. But if it does become a real full-time thing, I would love to share it with you guys. I feel like it'll be so much fun. But yeah, I think the fun of reading this book was the fact that I got to read it with her for my book club. And the memories I made. Surviving COVID with it. And interestingly enough, that's all the books I read in June. Like, most of them were novellas. I did Believe Me, Shadow Me, Destroy Me, Fracture Me, Imagine Me, Blah 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 Me. Like, so many novellas. But it was a good ride. I enjoyed it. I probably will end up buying the novellas to finish my collection, just so I can have the full story and the full grasp of it for whenever I want to do a reread in the future. But the books I had on my TBR that I haven't finished yet are these 3 novels right here. King of Scars. I think I'm only like maybe 3 chapters in. Something like that. It's not that deep. I'm not that deep into it. Started off interesting, but not as interesting enough to keep me hooked. I'm gonna come back to it when I have time, but we're still doing it. I love Nicole. I love his story, but like, I need more. I need more. Anyway, King of Scars is a duology from the Shadow Bone world. There's a Netflix series out about it. The first series is the Shadow and Bone world with like Elena, Alanka. I don't remember her name. What was her name? We're gonna call her Elena, but that might not be her name. And then the second series is Six of Crows, which is like a heist story. And the third story, which is King of Scars, Nikolai's series. And it's a duology. A lot of people have told me that it doesn't live up to the hype of Nikolai. It doesn't live up to his story, but you know, it's okay. I love Nikolai, so we're gonna go on the adventure together anyway. So yeah, King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. Started it, didn't finish it, bringing it into July. Wow, we're already like 6 months from New Year. It's crazy. I feel like I haven't done enough for 6 months of 2022. The next book is Diviners by Oliver Bray. I've been wanting to read this book forever. It was a lot of people's favorite books from back then, and I really don't know much about it. I am going to it blind, and I didn't get that deep into it. I think I'm only like 100 pages deep into this book. But since I didn't know much going into it about the book, I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna read it and I'm gonna enjoy it and see what happens. There's like some spirit stuff happening into this book, and it's a little bit triggering. So I don't know if I want to read it. I might DNF it because of that, and I might end up selling my special exclusive. I think this is Fairy Loot. I don't remember anymore. I don't remember. This is either Fairy Loot or Lemon Crate. Don't remember at all. But anyway, I might end up selling this series because I don't know if I really want to read about spirits or the conjuring of them. Not sure. It depends. Some people write it really well and I can read it, and some people don't. And it doesn't mean like write it really well, but some people write it in the way where it's not going to freak me out, and some people don't. So I'm trying to figure out, is this going to freak me out? Because I don't have time to be like looking over my shoulder for spooky paranormals. We don't have time for that. I need to sleep at night peacefully. If you guys were the type of people who can watch a horror movie before bed, I'm the type of person who does not watch horror at all, because I know I am gonna be like looking over my shoulder every 5 seconds like a little cat, and it's just not for me. I don't do horror, I don't do spooky haunted houses, I don't do like ghost hunting. It's just not for me. It's not for me. I don't do it. And like, I know a lot of people can watch horror and laugh. I'll be the person watching horror and like trembling in a corner. So I'm trying to figure out, is this gonna become really scary? Because I don't do scary. which is kind of the downside about going into popular books blind. Like, you want to go into it blind because you've heard that's really good and you don't want anything to potentially spoil you, but then you figure out that this might not be a book that you want to actually read because you might be triggered and like be up late at night listening to every single creak in your house, wondering, is there someone walking around? And yeah, we shall see if I do not DNF this. I'm not that deep into it yet, so as I continue reading, maybe I'll figure out the vibe, but if I DNF it, don't be surprised. The next book is Blood Scion, but I really liked this artwork. Thought it was stunning, and I understand it more now since I am so deep in this book. This book I'm actually almost done with. I'm about 3/4 in. I don't have much left, but it is very dark. It is very gritty. It handles very hard topics that I wasn't really sure how I would react to once I read the disclaimer at the beginning of the book. I'll read that disclaimer to you guys as well. This book is inspired by the real-life horrors endured by child soldiers and the war on children in particular, and therefore tackles themes of war, violence, and sexual assault. Please read with care. I don't know how I'm going to react to this book. If I find it to be too much for me to read, I probably will end up DNFing it. There are just some things that I find triggering, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about them later necessarily. I have a lot of processing to do with this book necessarily. I have a lot of processing that I want to do with this book to see if I'm going to continue reading it, but I will give the warning. It is dark, it is gritty, there is sexual assault on children. It's truly triggering, and I don't want to potentially, and I just want to make sure you guys know that before you read it. I read the disclaimer and I told myself I was going to read it until I felt like I needed to stop, or read it and see if I could read it straight through. I might have to stop. I'm not sure yet. We got pretty far and deep, but I started feeling this way when some of the scenes started happening, and I was like, can I continue this? How will my mental health be if I do continue this? So make sure you check the trigger warnings and emotionally prepare yourself. I feel like this is a book I should have taken time out of my day to emotionally prepare to read. I did not, so I started reading it and I read the disclaimer and I was like, okay, you didn't emotionally prepare for this, but let's see if we can do this right anyway. Maybe after I put it down and I emotionally prepare for it some more, I'll be able to continue it. But for right now, it is very dark, it is very gritty, and it does detail atrocities done to children. So, if I do DNF it, do not be surprised. But I will say, the world building, phenomenal. The writing, amazing. I feel like this story is a hard story to tell because of like the atrocities done to children. I would really like to read maybe her thought process when writing this book, because it's sad. It's so sad. But I definitely see this becoming a 4-star from what I've read so far. It is like a 4.2 right now. I haven't gotten to, like, you know, the climax of the book yet because we're only right here, but it is good. I just don't know if I'm ready to continue the journey. So these are the books I started in June but have yet to finish that are going to be following me into July. And then we have a book I was supposed to read in June, but I actually just decided not to, honestly. This is The Book of Night by Holly Black. It was her debut novel into adult fiction, and I wanted to read this book. I was hearing mixed reviews about it when I first got it, but then I started reading and listening to more reviews about it, and it was just like, it wasn't hitting the standard that a lot of people felt for her writing, and I already knew I wasn't a hardcore Holly Black fan, so I feel like if they're fans who are hardcore fans are not feeling it, then I definitely probably would not be feeling it either. So I decided not to even read it. I like, once I started reading, seeing all those reviews, I was like, I I don't think I'm gonna like it, because I like her books and her magical woven tales, but I'm not a big fan of her as an author. It just never had like hooked me enough to be like, oh, she's a favorite, I have to read everything she writes. So I don't know, maybe if one day I have time and there's nothing else better for me to read, I'll read it. But I feel like I have more books on my TBR that I just want to read more. And another book that I actually just ended up picking up because why the heck not? It's Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. And it's one of my favorite books ever, and I decided to pick it up when I wasn't feeling that great. And I started tabbing it. I started tabbing it, and I'm not done with it. I'm about like right here right now. And I really like the story. I've never tabbed any of my Infernal Devices books yet, so I was looking forward to tabbing it and taking notes and just really enjoying the process of reading one of my favorite stories. And I will probably be taking this not into July. I probably won't be taking this into July. I'll probably finish it tonight with a tabbing, and it'll be like my 15th book for June, because right now we're just on June 28th. But I really love Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, and it was nice spending time with some of my favorites. I am itching. I have already pre-ordered the last book in the Last Hour series. I pre-ordered this book on Amazon, so I really hope that I get it like on a drop of a dime when it comes out, because I'm itching to read it. I've already read Clockwork Gold, Chain of Gold, and Chain of Iron twice, and I need the last book. I need it. I really hope it's not a letdown. I really hope it hits all the boxes. It has to hit all the boxes. I really hope our favorite characters don't die. I feel like one of them are gonna die, and I'm just like, no, don't let them die. Let them all live. But I feel like, you know, in the Cassandra Clare way, she's just gonna rip our heart out. Just because she does that. She rips people's heart out. She's so good at it too. So I did pre-order my last book. And I can't wait for it to come out with its 10-year collection, so I can finally have like all the Cassandra Clare books in the really nice, you know, 10th anniversary covers, because these are so beautiful. The artwork, the characters, it's just a gorgeous book, and I'm really happy I decided to tab this one. It was an experience reading it. I loved it. So those were all the books I read in June. It was a very productive reading month in June. It wasn't productive for my schoolwork or my work life. That's why you haven't seen many videos on my YouTube channel, because I was so ill. And that is why I will have to play catch up in class this month. I'm not looking forward to that at all, but I'll have happy good books to read in the meantime. Happy reading, y'all. I hope your June reading went just as well. Remember, we were halfway through the year, so check into your reading stats. Make sure you're on track, and if you're not, it's okay. At the end of the day, read for enjoyment. Don't read for burnout, because life has enough issues to burn you out. Don't make reading one of them. I hope you guys have a happy reading month this month and next. Bye, y'all.